Hello everybody. I've done some searching on the internet about Yonaguni. This monument was discovered off the coast of Taiwan. It's actually Japanese territory, close to Okinawa, but it's just off Taiwan. And I think I'm the only person in the world right now who knows exactly what this monument is and exactly how it formed. That's a lot to swallow. I've been racking my brains for days about this, trying to work out what it is, and I'm going to take you through this. I'm not going to rush this video. I'm just going to take you through this, and I think by the end of it you might be as convinced as I am regarding this. Okay, what is it? I'm going to talk about the theories. Look at this. This is Yonaguni. Look at this. Looks totally man-made. I was going to say this is concrete. I mean, look at that. It's clearly been cut. I was going to say that. Yep, it's clearly, the evidence is clear. Look at this. Unbelievable sophistication, technicality. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these ridges and everything. It's even got some kind of staircase to get up onto the monument. Turtles, they seem to have worshipped turtles. There are turtle-shaped tombs on the island of Yonaguni. There are terraces. This almost looks like a pyramid terrace here on top, except this is too much detail. There's too much stuff going on here. And I was racking my brains for days trying to work out what this is, to make a video about this, you know, to explain what this is. And I would have said geopolymer, like someone's compared it to Peru. I'm not sure what that is. I think that is different to that. I was going to say it's geopolymer. I even asked God or the subconscious, what is this? Please tell me. And you know, I got the immediate reply, manufacturing center, mass production. I got the immediate reply, mass production. And I was thinking, what can that mean? What can that mean? And then I eventually realized what this means. And I'm going to show you what that means. You know, I think if we ask our subconscious kind of in a way knows the future. It's like ourselves in the future, you know, it's telling us the answer. The brain is a powerful device. Anyway, look at this. I was going to say this is geopolymer, this has been laid, maybe even a cement factory or a quarry or a platform. It even faces east, west, north, south. Look at this. This is a crystal. I'm introducing you to the idea of crystal early on in this video. It's got recessed sides. Quite interesting. Look at the technicality. Look at that. Now this is actually a snowflake, a water crystal. This ain't man-made. Electron microscope. Yonaguni. Look, it seems to have staircases. But the staircases are just crazy. There's too many of them. And look, there's even a sideways staircase here. What do you need that for? It's crazy. And the angles are weird. I mean, you've got, it looks like steps to get onto this platform, sure, and there's a recess, possibly for sacrifice. You've got diagonal angles as well, just diagonals in it as well. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't look like a buried building, it doesn't look like an eroded building, it doesn't look like a pyramid platform. But I was going to say it is. I was going to say, look at this, here's a German picture of it. I was going to say, okay, there's been a catastrophe, the flood, tidal waves, and the flood has even pushed the monument over. You can see it's almost on its side in this particular diagram, but I'm not sure if it's actually on its side for real. There seems to be a bit of contradictory information. Look at that, it's even got a road, you know, you can walk right through the middle of it and up these steps, but on closer examination, are they really steps? They seem a bit irregular, they seem a bit weird. And people who dive this, they say, wow, it's like science fiction, it's like sci-fi. They can't believe it. There is such immense technicality here. It's as if it was designed by a great mathematician. That clearly looks like some kind of pyramid. I mean, that looks man-made. If you would ask me, I would say man-made. One of the more famous pictures, strange diagonals, grooves. What's going on? I was going to compare it to this monument here. This is in the Canary Islands, and it seems to have been built or rebuilt by farmers in the 19th century, but I think it's way older. Thor Heyerdahl was a champion of this site. He said this is the Guanche people. Tall redheads, they seem to have been the world pyramid builders. Step platforms, and they are astronomically aligned. Why would farmers in the 19th century really bother with this stuff? But actually they have carbon dated underneath, and someone's been digging away because there are 19th century remains. The local site was built in the 19th century. It's run by a friend of Thor Heyerdahl, and well, who knows? I think the jury's out on this one. But I was going to compare it to it, but this is clearly man-made. Yonaguni, wow. And look, I've started to compare it to a crystal. It's a strange crystal if it is, because it's even got rounded sides. But yes, I am going to, well, start to argue that it is a crystal. And you might not believe me that this is a huge crystal, but I think you might believe me by the end of the video. I mean, look, pool, terrace, upper terrace. Really? Look at all this stuff. This isn't... Surely one staircase would suffice. Look, there's even a loop road, a gate to get into the structure. Again, this picture. Look at that. It appears a megalithic archway is here. If you showed me that, I'd say, yeah, it's man-made. Even this guy, you know, I want to believe, you know, aliens? Who knows? Look at that. Unbelievable technicality here. It almost looks like a machine, and some people, I think on YouTube, are saying it's a machine. They discovered this 1.5 miles away, a headdress picture. Yes, clearly it could be a picture of a headdress. It could be natural, but it could be a picture of a headdress. This was once all above sea level. Look at this, 2 megaliths here. Now I'm going to argue these are in fact natural, and you're going to say, what are you talking about? Natural? What are you talking about? I'm going to say yes, and I'll show you why. I'll back up everything. They found this 1.5 miles away. They call this the terrace. I'm going to say that's natural. Mask, this face, I don't know what that is. It's a rock. Who knows? Now this guy, Robert Schoch, he's a very clever man. Very smart. He wrote some great books about pyramids. I really respect this guy, admire this guy. He says it's natural. He wanted this to be artificial. He really did, because he says the Sphinx is way older than it really is. He initially said 5000 BC, now he's inching towards an earlier date. He says he wanted it to be natural, but he looked at the geology around the island and he found lots of geology matching this. And you know what? He's right. Now, I think he's wrong in his interpretation. He says this was weathering, undersea currents, pushing away, breaking off bits of it. I'm not convinced about that explanation. I think he's wrong there. This is kind of a co-discoverer with the diver who discovered this monument. I think it was in the 80s, Professor Masaka Kimura. And he said, look, we've found tools there. And he said, look, if Schoch is correct and it was weathering, where are the weathered pieces gone? Where are they? They should be around the bottom of the monument. They're not. And he's right. They're not. What's going on? And I think I've got an explanation to take into account both of these. And here, Graham Hancock, also a very clever man. All three of them very clever. He is really pushing the artificial explanation. He's saying there are hidden recesses with sharp right angle turns which were not exposed to undersea weathering, or any weathering at all. Therefore it must have been done by man. And that is a very good point. But if you take into account the explanation I'm about to provide to you, that nullifies what he's saying, right? These are actually protein crystals. These are the basic shapes, and you see immense technicality here in the design. I am suggesting Yonaguni is a crystal. That's right, guys, it's a crystal. It's a crystal, but it's a special type of crystal called a co-crystal, right? This is a crystal of different types of molecule. Look, I want you to take, this is how crystals formed. You start with a molecular structure and you add pieces, you add blocks like Lego, you just keep adding them, and you see these angles. I'm suggesting these angles of what you see at Yonaguni. Yonaguni. Now we see some strange angles, particularly parallelograms. We see parallelograms. We see strange diagonals. I'm suggesting, guys, this is one huge crystal. And Look, people concentrate on Yonaguni. Look, guys, Yonaguni is an imperfect crystal. It's a flawed crystal. The perfect one is behind it. No one ever talks about that. No one ever talks about the one in front of it. Look, there's more of this. And on a huge scale, I'm going to show this to you. These are cholesterol crystals. I give you Yonaguni, but Yonaguni are not cholesterol. I thought, yeah, could be cholesterol, but no. Look, immense technicality. Looks man-made, right? No, look, right angles. You see, guys? Like a staircase almost, you see? You see what I mean? Pyramid, terrace, you see what I mean? But crystals grow by stacking, adding blocks and adding blocks and adding blocks. Cholesterol crystals. Remember those parallelograms I showed you? This is for a microscope. Look, it's got a terrace. There's another one on top, you see? Look at this. Almost if this was huge, you would say this was man-made. And there we go. Look, the parallelogram. You see? Back to the cholesterol crystals. Look, that's the recess there, you see? Look, I'll make it bigger. That's this recess here is this recess here. This is a massive crystal, and no one is saying this. Nobody. Look, I give you Yonaguni. Again, these are more cholesterol crystals. But I think it's not quite cholesterol. There would be some carbon in it. They say it's sandstone. It's a combination of sandstone with other stuff. It's a co-crystal. Look at this technical excellence. This is unbelievable. Look. This is a miniature Yonaguni. This is through the microscope. Now, when they analyze urine, if they find this stuff, it's okay. If they find this, there might be a problem. Like you might have too much cholesterol in your blood, bilirubin. They all crystallize differently. There are needles. Crystals form in different ways. Again, cholesterol crystals. Look at those right angles. Graham Hancock actually described a hidden recess in Yonaguni that looks like that, and he's saying that's not weathering, therefore it's man-made. But look, this isn't man-made. This is made. This is proto-life, mineral life, and it grows, it spawns, it gets bigger. It depends on the concentration of crystal in the dissolved crystal in the solution as to how this grows. It can grow in flawed shapes. It can grow in perfect shapes. Flawed shapes. If you have a supersaturated solution, it grows well. It grows badly. If you have a solution with hardly any crystal, it grows badly. If you have a perfect solution, it grows well. And crystals can shrink and grow. They're like a prototype form of life. Look, megalith. That's that long megalith I was talking about earlier. And they would form together in the same area if those solution conditions were similar in that area. That's through the microscope. Look, there's a lot more behind there. Also right angles. It goes on and on and on. It goes on and on and on all over the island. There's no end to it. This is crystallization, this particular part of the Earth's surface. I'm telling you guys. Look, now I give you... Now I thought, yes, cholesterol. It could be a huge lump of cholesterol. Maybe plankton, bacteria. Who knows what's going on. And then I saw this. I was looking up Alkaline Earth Crystals, second periodic group of the periodic table, and look at this. Guys, I give you Yonaguni. It's even got that rounded area down the bottom. They would say the road is around there. You go up the staircases and this is the pyramid platform. It even looks like Yonaguni. That particular one there, I'm going to provide the link to this report, but you need a special account to log in or something. It's a scientific paper, they're hard to access, but this is an alkaline earth mineral. And this is what Yonaguni is on a huge scale. That's it. That's Yonaguni. This is the explanation. Look, the megaliths that I described earlier, I showed you, that those two joint megaliths, look, they form together in solution. It is a huge crystal which has precipitated out of solution, and I want to show you this. Look, there would have been a drowned continent here, and that professor I showed you earlier, Dr. Masaki Kimura, he actually said, look, it was above ground in 8,000 BC, therefore man-made, or 8,000 years ago, 6,000 BC, therefore man-made. And look, Yonaguni, Japan's over here, Okinawa, and Yonaguni, it's all the way down here, right? Right? And look, if we zoom into the continental shelf, Look, do you see how big Taiwan is? Look at this. Look. Sharp lines, angles. It looks like another terrace right here. The conditions here are the same as here. Is this man-made on the scale of Taiwan? Probably not. This is a huge crystal which is spontaneously formed. Crystals are forming on massive scales all over the earth. No one really talks about this. The geologists are not chemists, and you have to be a chemist. You have to have a chemist background to appreciate this. This is a nice picture. It's actually been signed by the discoverer. That's the discoverer of Yonaguni. Look, technicality on a huge scale. This was done by the genius of nature. These are crystals. This is a huge crystal. Look, and if you don't believe me that you get crystals on a huge scale, this is a cave in Mexico, and guess what? Look, asbestos crystals look kind of like this, right? I think the whole Yonaguni monument is a natural geopolymer. It's a copolymer with sandstone, really, but it's got these other earth elements in it. Asbestos looks like that on a tiny scale, and he's actually dressed in a spacesuit just in case there are tiny particles of asbestos. You don't want to inhale this stuff into your lungs. Wow. This is a cave in Mexico discovered a few years ago. Look, this is bismuth. Bismuth crystals. Do you see the technicality, the precision? You see? This is all natural. They even look like inverted pyramids. This is all natural. This is a alkaline earth crystal. Okay, this is called bromellite. Okay, a miniature Yonaguni. Look, right angles. This is calcium phosphate from a knee joint. Look, this is one of those terraces on Yonaguni, right? These are more crystals. Look, here is a huge flat plane. I think these are chloride. These could even be sodium chloride. Look at this. Look, right angles. Perfection. You wouldn't say that's man-made. That's through the microscope. This is 10 picometers. Look at that. This is amazing. Microns. 10 microns across. This is erbium. Erbium is an element, but here it's mixed with other earth elements. And look at that. I give you an artificial looking terrace. Imagine if this is Yonaguni lying on its side. Here are the staircases. And here are the rounded areas. And on top a terrace. It's a crystal. Yonaguni is a crystal. It's a huge crystal. More terracing. More strange angles. Here, calcium, aluminum, hydrogen. This would be mixed with water in a hydrate solution. Crystals, guys. Look, this is I think this is Peru, right? Why are these stairs upside down? And obviously they're alluding to some kind of catastrophe here. I found this on the internet. But look, firstly, they're not steps because they don't go anywhere. They don't go there either. Secondly, why are there steps here? Why is the rail made of steps? Thirdly, why are there steps here? Why are there steps there?